All right, so let's look at how to extract data from all sort of data types in R. Some call it subsetting, others call it data extraction. Is the same and one. So I'm going to share my screen, and then I'll just pull up this is my R Studio. So I will just do this very quickly in a very speedy manner. So I want to widen up the space a little while, and so I'll just hashtag this one data extraction, or let me just put it subsetting. Subsetting in what is it? Subsetting vectors. What is it? Vectors. All right. So let's say let me create a vector, and so I'm just going to create my first vector like this. So let's say I have what is it? A vector. Let me put it this way, and then so I'm just going to just a minute, and so I'm going to use the combine sign to create this particular vector, and let me say that I want a vector of let's say random numbers, rnum, right? Yeah, maybe rnum, and so I'll just put the number there, and then let's say what the mean and then the standard deviation. I'm going to have the number there. So let's say I want 15 values, or let me put it 20 values there. Or maybe if I don't put anything there, it will assume that the mean is 0 and the standard deviation is 1. So in this case, let me say my mean is equal to 2 and my standard deviation is also equal to 2. So if I do that, it means all the values are going to be within that particular range. It's going to be the range of 2, because I'm saying that it's going to be between the range of 1 and then 4 possibly. And so that's what I'm trying to. So if I run it, I have my vector here. So if I print this vector, we're going to look at how the vector looks like. So I have all the numbers there, and so maybe as we round it off, I can just put it, or I can round it off. So I put the function called round, and then I'm simply going to come here, and then I'm running it into 1 decimal place. Then I'll close this up. Well, I don't know if this is going to work, but that works properly. So now let me come and then we look at the vector here. I run it, so you can see I now have just 1 decimal place a vector. Now, how do we subset vector? It's very simple. So we use this curly bracket or square bracket to be able to subset it. It's very simple. Now, when you do this by the vector, you can actually pick up the index. You can put a number there. What is it? And then that number will simply pull out that number. So for instance, I have a vector like this. So if I put a square bracket by it, and if I put 1, it means that I want to go into this particular vector and print the first variable. So the 1 is actually a positioner, or is an index. That's why I'm saying 1. So if I say 1 like this, it will print the first value. So you see that it prints the first value, which is okay. Let me pull up this, wipe out this, and then I'll come and then do this again. So that's going to give me 0.3. All right, so I'm printing the first value, and the first value is actually 0.3. Now, maybe I may want to print the first 5 values. So I'll simply just put the square bracket and say 1 is to 5. So it will print the first 5 values for me, and then that is it. So what about if I want to print the last values? Then I should know that there are about 20 of them, and so I'll just put the vector there, and then put my square bracket. Then let's say I want to print the last 20. So it actually will start from 16. So I'll say 16 is to what is it, 20. So it will print the last values for me. So you can see the last values have been printed. What about if I want to print values which are not in series? these are ways of printing the numbers that are in series. They are, or that are in sequence. We are following it in sequence. So let's say I want to print the third, the fifth, and the 12th value. So you simply have this, and then you simply have your square bracket, but within that you create a vector, and then you can use that particular vector to say you want to print the third value, you want to print the 7th value, and you want to print, let's say, the 11th value, and that is all. So when you do that, it jumps to print all those values for you, because remember, this is the vector, and then if I run the vector, you can see that this is my first one. So let's cross check to see the third value. The third value is actually 2.1 here, so as you can see 2.1 here, then in that order. So this is how we are able to extract some information from a vector. It's not too difficult like that. Now let's look at the next one, which is a list. So I will just go to create a list. And then the list, it takes the same approach. The list takes the same approach. So let's say I want to create a list. But before I do that, let me create a vector of characters. A vector of characters, and then I'll be able to do that. And also it's take the same format. And so I'm going to come here, and then I just have, let's say, AA. Then I just would have GG, and then if I just go out of that, I have let's say HJ. So let's assume these are names of people, and then I also have, let's say, FT. I have TY. No, that should be, so I have TY. Then in that order, you run it, then you have your vector already. If you print this out, you're going to have the vector here. Now we use the same approach. So if I have the vector underscore character like this, then you simply have your square bracket to it, and then you indicate. So if I indicate 1, it's simply going to print 1 for me. Okay. And then of course there are instances you could also give the actual name, and it will print the actual name for you. It will print the actual name for you. So this way you are able to extract the data that you want, and you can perform maybe some kind of mathematical operation on it or whatsoever. So let's assume that you wanted to add the first 5 values to the last 5 values. So what would you have done? I would have simply just said that I have my vector, I have my vector here, and then I'll just have that. Then bring this, and then I have 1:5. That means I am simply picking the first 5 values, and then I'm adding it to, then you have the vector again, and then you have your square bracket, and then the last 5 values, that will be from 16 all the way to 20, like that. So when you do that and run, it will simply just give you the results as you have it here. It will add the first 5 values to. So these are some of the few things that I want you to pay attention to. So if like you can also do that, you can check that for the characters. By characters, you don't perform any mathematical operation. So it's the same way. Now let's look at a list. A list there is made of like different things. Let's say I have a vector. My vector is already there, so I can actually create, let's say, my lists. I can call it list A, like this, and then I'm simply going to just say like this, and then I'll use the list function to create it. So I'll use the list function to just create it. So I have my list function here, and then what am I creating? I can create both characters and then vectors and whatsoever. So let me say I want to start and have 1:3, then comma, followed by the vector I just created, which is called vector, and then followed by the other vector, which is also, maybe let me put some figures here. Let's say 5, 7, and then the last vector, which is a vector of character, a vector underscore character, which is here. If you run that, you're going to have a list of all this. So let me brush this off. then print this list A out, and then you see that all of them are here. So you have the first one, you have the second one, and then you have this. So now when I come here, I'm going to have my list A, something like this, and then I can come here. Now let me put one there and run it, and then you see what it's going to print. It's going to print the first three. It's going to print the first three things that I have. So you notice that it prints 1, 2, 3, and then the list A is 1:3. It prints the whole of this. So what it simply means is that in list, you are actually it follows whatever that you have in this particular bracket. You see. So if I wanted to print this particular vector, I just say my list A, then I have my square bracket. Then if I say 2, it's going to print the second one that is coming, which is the vector. And so I'm going to run that. You see that it prints the content of the vector, not the vector itself, and then in that order. So if I want this, I have to index it by 3. So that's the slight difference between what is it, a list and then vector, how to be able to subset it. Quickly, let me go and look at a data frame. So I'm going to have, because of time, I have to rush quickly and do this. So I'm going to call this my, my data frame, this way. You see, I already have some data frame seated here. So let me run it and see how it looks like. So there's a data frame seated, data frame 1, 2, 3, and so there are about how many columns? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the data frame over there. So each of them is named D1, D2, D3, D4 up to D6. So now in subsetting data frames, this one was let me put a hashtag over there. So this one we were subsetting a list. So here we want to look at how to subsetting data frames or a data frame. So just put it this way. So I've just printed a data frame out. So this is the name of the data frame. So for a data frame, when you have, if you bring the square bracket like this, there are several ways of subsetting data frames. You can use the $sign, or you can use, in fact, actually 3 ways. The first way is to attach the data frame. The second way is to use the $sign, or the third way is to use the square bracket. So let me start by using the square bracket. So, or let me start with the dollar. So if I do dollar like this, you see that all the columns come in here. So if I do list, it means I want to print only the first column. So it will print only that. So I have taken that. So if I wanted to pick only the first column, I could just pack that one into a new variable. And so I could just do this, and then I'll pack it into a new variable. I can call it, maybe let's say variable 1. And so in that case, that particular column has been sectioned out into variable 1. So you cannot do anything you want with the variable 1. And so that's how it is. So this is how, when we are doing it, you can actually pack your results, or you can create a value. This is right assignment. It's the same thing. So I could have the same thing like my data frame like this. And then if I wanted any of them, you just do like this, and you come and then select. Then it will simply just print that particular column for you. Well, what about if I wanted a row? If I want to print a row, maybe this is a column, but if I want to print a row, that is where the square bracket comes in. So I can also use the square bracket like this. And when you do comma like this, it means anything on the left of the comma is actually the rows. The right hand side is the columns. So I just have, if I do like this, it means I'm looking for the first row. It will print the first row of all the columns. So if I do that, it prints the first row of all the columns. Let me brush this off, run the data frame again, and let it be there so that I can verify. So you notice that, so when I come here and run this, I'll have the first row. It prints only the first row of all the columns, and that's how it is. What about if I wanted the first row of only 2 or the first 3 columns? So I would have said, or the first column. Let me put it this way. In this case, you are printing only one value. You are printing just one value. So if we run that, it's going to be the first one. So first row, first column, where they intersect, that's where you actually pick your value from. So this is basically the same way as to how we are able to do all sort of like what is it, subsetting. Now there are instances you may want to subset at a particular portion. All you need to know is to know just have your data frame, my data frame here like this, and so I have my data frame there. And then if I bring my square bracket like this, I do like this. Let's assume that I wanted to pick the first how many rows are there. There are actually 10 rows, so I want the first 6 rows. So I'll say 1:6, and then I go to the other side. If I want the first 6 rows without anything, so this is going to happen. So this one, it takes me only the first 6 rows of all the columns. If you don't indicate anything on the column side, it means you are looking for all the columns. All right. So I'm just going to copy this, come here, paste it again. But what about if I want the first 6 rows of the first 2 columns? So I've just put 1:2, and then that way it's going to print the first 6 rows of the first 2 columns. I could have done that for the last 2. What about if I want the first 6 rows of not column that are follow each other? I'll say the first 6 rows. Okay, let me leave this one like that. I would have just come here, paste this here, and I say I want the first 6 rows of, let's say I want it in column 1, column 3, and then column 5. So they are not in series. So you can't use the is2. You can't use the column function to be able to get that. So you use what we call the vector, and then you come here and specify. I want the first row. I want the first 6 rows of the second column, then let's say the 4th column, and then of course let's say you want it and then the 6th column. I don't know if we have up to 6. Yeah, and then the 6th column. So it will simply print those ones out, and then that is it. So if you wanted that results out to do something like this, like I've already told you, you can pack the results into a new variable, and then that is it. You can call it variable 2, and then when you run it, it will be seated inside that variable. So you can now work with that variable separately. So these are the various ways you could have equally done the same way, like I use the vector sign to be able to subset from this particular side. It's quite simple like that. Now let's use something called attach. I'm going to use something called attach function. And what am I attaching? I'm attaching a data frame called my df, and then I'll run it. And so let me look at what is here. The following objects have been masked out. So, okay, I understand. And so now when you come here, and then I now want to say, let's say I just want D1 like this, and print it. It will print it. You no longer have to specify the name of the data frame before you specify the column. No, you don't have to do that. And when you do attach simply separate the columns. It identifies the columns as individuals, and that's all. So I'll just put the column name there to print everything I need in that particular column. So let's say I wanted something in this column, and then maybe the column now becomes a vector. So I will now use the vector sign to subset it. So let's say I want in that column, but I want the first to the zip value of that particular column. I'll just do this and to print it for me. This is another way of doing it. So there are different ways through which you can just run around and do this your subsetting, and then you are good to go. For instance, if I wanted to have a visual impression of the zip column, how it's going to look like, I could do a histogram. So I'll just say histogram here. And then instead of me now wasting my time writing my data frame before I specify the column, I'll just simply come and say D6, and then I'll run it. So you see my histogram here. My histogram is already there. If you wanted, you could have add color to it. You add color, and then maybe colors are always maybe red, and then you do that. So it will turn it into red. Instead of you specifying, the thing becomes quite easy. So these are the various ways through which we are able to do we are able to subset data sets, the different data types. We've done vector, we've done list, we've done data frames. Now, if you know how to subset data frame, it's almost the same as subsetting matrix. So let's say I don't know what if I have matrix data seated somewhere. I don't know if I have matrix data seated anywhere on my computer. So let me run it and see. No. I thought I have matrix, yeah, matrix 3. Let me run it and see whether it is there. If the object is not there, but I built some few matrix, matrix 1. I don't know if, or it's not also there. So maybe I should build one. So let's say I have matrix, what is it? My matrix data, and then I just created a variable, and then I'm going to say use the matrix function to do that. So, and the matrix, I'm going to create a data frame, the data, which is actually 1:25, or let me put it 1:20. 1:20, and then my number of rows, n row is equal to, let me put it, what and what will give me 20? 4, 5, 20, right? So I have 5. My number of columns, n call will be equal to 4, and then by row is practically true. And so if I do that, I just run it, my matrix is ready. So let me do that. So you can see the matrix around here. It's the same strategy, the same way we also subset it. So I have the matrix here, which is here. Now come and use the square bracket like this, and then you also divide it into 2. So that one also takes the row. The first part takes the row, the second part takes the column. So I'm also going to put 1 there and run it. You see that it prints the first value. It is going to print the first value, which is 1. The same way, the same syntax will apply in data frames. Now the last one is data array. Now let me just create one data array and then show you how to be able to subset it. So I have my data array. What am I going to do? So I just call it, I don't know if it's like I have an array seated somewhere. Array 1. No, the object is not there. So let me create it. It's not going to be long. So I have my array here, and then I'm simply going to use the array function to be able to create it. And then I just put my data there. And so I'm going to say 1:30. That's the data set. And then I use the vector or the combine function to just create the number of rows. So 30, let me see if I have 5, 6, 30, right? So okay, I have 6 by 5. And then how many arrays do I want? Maybe I say I want 4, and that's all. So if I run that, the array is ready. So let me clean this portion, just stretch out this, and then come and print the array 1, and then you see. And so my array 1 is ready. So you see array 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So in this case, I can now do any kind of subsetting that I need. So in array, there is an array. There is an extra layer when you are doing subsetting. So that one too, you can just bring your square bracket like this, but you have 2 comma instead of 1. The first is the rows, the second is the columns, and then the third is the specific array you want to. So if I put here this 1, I'm looking for row 1, the value which is found in row 1, column 1, and then in which particular array. Let's say I'm looking for it in array 4. So it goes to array 4 and pick the value which is found in the intersection between row 1 and then column 1, and that is it. It goes there and then it picks that value for me, and you can see it is 1. Because if I pull this up, this is my array 4. You can see this is my row 1, my column 1. They meet here in array 4. It's simple like that. You just, if you also want some kind of jumps, let's say I want if you wanted things that are not in series, if you want values which are not in series, use the vector sign. For instance, I wanted, let's say 1:3. So no, 1:3. So it means I want the first row to the third row in column 1. Let's say, but I wanted this in column 1:2 in array 4. So that is it. It will print that out for me. And so it goes there, look for column 1 and then column 2, and then it will print this out in array 4. Let's assume that I wanted to sectionalize things that are not in series or they are not in sequence. So I simply have the array like this, my array 1 like this. Then I just put up my square bracket like this. and then another comma. So if I come to the first comma, I can use my C, my vector sign, and put this inside there and say, okay, I want the values in the second row, then the third row, because they are not, or maybe let me put it the fourth row, and then I also want it in the first row. So look at how it is. It's going to print the value. I want the value in the first row to be the first value, followed by the one in the fourth row, and followed by the one in the first row. In which column do I want this? Let's say I also want it in the column which are not following. They are not following each other. So I also use C and said I want this rather in column 1. Then I want this other one in column 3. And then when I go here, do I need all these values in only one array, or I want them in different arrays? Then let's say I want them in array 1 or array 2 and then array 4. So I'll use the same C again and then come and open and close bracket. Then I want it in array 2 and then in array 4, and that is it. So when you run that, it's going to go round and then put all these figures together, and that is your resource, which is here. It's so simple like that. It's just some kind of techniques you apply. And let me say this, wherever, anytime you are doing this sectionalization, or you want to do something which are not in series, or you want to add some value which are not in series, which are not in whatsoever, always use the vector function. So to be able to create a vector, R understands that, and then it will do that for you. If you wanted to perform any mathematical operation on anything you do, this is how you sectionalize it. You pick up the part of the data you want, and then you are able to go with it. If you are having so much, let's say this was department 2 and then department 4. You are looking for the data in the 2 departments. You don't have to waste your time. You simply just write a small code like this and it picks out only those people that you are interested. So this is how we are able to subset the various data types. And we have vectors, lists, a data frame, and of course we also have a matrix and then arrays, which I have just done right now. I hope you've learned something small, and if you enjoy my videos, why don't you give me a thumbs up, subscribe it. I keep uploading videos almost every day, and especially on R programming and then other issues that have to do with IT. Thank you. I'll see you.